Do you believe there is a God?
No.
Okay. Tell me why not, I guess.
I was actually raised in the church. My mom's an ordained minister, so
Okay.
I was educated. That's how I was raised, believing in God. And then as I got older and started asking questions, it just kind of stopped making sense to me. And then when I learned the science behind why the universe works the way it does, it was enough for me.
Okay.
And so I didn't need any deeper meaning or deeper reasoning.
So you would classify yourself as an atheist?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, tell me about, you said you grew up in the church. What church was it?
United Methodist.
Methodist church, okay. And your mom's an ordained minister as a Methodist minister?
Yes.
Okay, and how's your relationship with her now that she's still an ordained minister and you're an atheist?
Pretty amazing.
Okay.
She's a really awesome woman. She totally understands that people are going to believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
Her type of Christianity is the kind where you're just meant to love other people and you're meant to be there to support other people. It's not a place of judgment. It's just a place of love and acceptance. So to
Right.
her, it doesn't matter what I believe or don't believe as long as I'm not a terrible person. And I'd like to think I'm not.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you had any experiences that have either confirmed the absence of God or made you question the absence of God at all?
I'd say the world we live in is proof enough to me. I think that there's so many horrible things that happen day in, day out to people who don't deserve it, that the idea to me that there is a God watching over this and going, cool guys, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think literally our existence is proof enough.
Okay, so to make sure I'm understanding, so it's like the pain and the suffering that's in the world makes you not believe that there is a loving God?
Yeah. That in addition to the fact that there's, no real proof of karma, there's no real proof of miracles and the good things that would come with at least the God that I was taught about as a child.
Right. What would have to, like you talked about proof and science from before. I'm curious, what kind of proof would make you believe that God does exist?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay.
I think,
That's honest
if there was a real life miracle, if someone suddenly walked across water or, if God literally spoke directly to me, that would be proof. But, I honestly couldn't tell you.
Okay, that's fair. Now, when we talk about walking across water, obviously it reminds me of Jesus, who I'm sure you've heard about. Who do you believe Jesus is or was?
I think that if a real person existed, they were someone who was incredibly charismatic, someone who was very influential and genuinely a good person for the lessons that he taught. And I think that time tends to expand our belief in things. So I think that time alone has taken what could have been a regular man and turned him into this larger myth of a person.
So you think perhaps he was a good preacher who the legend kind of grew?
Yeah, I think he genuinely inspired people enough that to this day people think that he could have been larger than life. But I think that most of his miracles are things that, either have been exaggerated or could be explained in a very obvious way.
Now, when we talk about Jesus, one of the things that, so I am a follower of Jesus, and I
kind of guessed.
Yeah. But I think there isn't enough dialogue with people like you. I mean, it either tends to be argumentative, or it tends to be like tone deaf, so we don't hear each other. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to do, is to get people who see the world differently to kind of like talk to each other. So that's why I appreciate you stopping and doing this.
Of course, yeah.
Now, one question I did have, so in regards to Jesus, you mentioned a good person. One question I do have is, he did say in different ways that he was God.
Right.
So how do you take that with the idea of just, let's say, just being a good person?
Right. I think there was, in my journey to atheism, there was
Yeah.
kind of pit stop I took along the way. Right when I was about to stop believing, I was actually on my way to a mission trip. We were going to
Wow.
the Appalachian Trail to help build houses, and we stopped in this random tiny little church. I think it was in Kentucky. And the minister preached this really beautiful sermon that morning about how God is not a person, God is not an entity in the sky, God is in all of us, God is our actions. And so I would say that's probably the closest I could come to reconciling that, the idea that if Jesus is saying, I am God, you know, I don't necessarily believe that means that this human could perform miracles, but maybe it meant that he had the actions of a God, of someone who was trying to make the world a better place.
Kind of like the concept of like God is in all of us kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
God is in who we choose to be and how we choose to treat others.
You know, turning on the news,
It's a dangerous thing
yeah,
nowadays.
right? It makes me wonder, if we are all God, then how do we explain that kind of behavior?
I think a lot of people choose not to take the right path in the way that if we are choosing to be God every day and choosing to do good things, it's just as easy to choose not to. I mean, there are so many people I know of multiple different religions, of no religion, who are good people or bad people. So I think, you know, even in the Bible, we are given the concept of free will.
Yes.
So even if we are all God, even if we all have God within us, it's up to us to choose that every day. And it's far easier for a lot of people to not do that than it is to take the higher road to be the better person.
Right. And you know, you're right in the sense of like, if we look at the biblical account of we're actually not what the world says, we're not all good, you know, that lines up with what I see as kind of like making sense with where the world is today. And so it is interesting, the concept of if we are all gods, then it's a choice, kind of like what I'm hearing. But that kind of makes me question, then maybe we're not all God because we're not definitely all good.
Right.
You know? And so one of the things that Jesus obviously came to talk about is the fact that we do have a broken relationship. And I'm sure you've heard this from your mom. We have a broken relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus is the one who paid the penalty. So this concept of this broken relationship and having the one who pays that penalty, where do you sit with that? Is that kind of like...
I think it's a lovely idea that there could be one person who could pay that ultimate price and make it better for all of us. But I think because I don't believe in the idea of an afterlife, it kind of falls flat for me, because that sacrifice is then for what? I don't believe in a heaven. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so what do you think happens when you die?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay, we just end up... Then what would be the reason that we're here?
Scientific randomness.
Okay, so you kind of think it's kind of an accident almost?
Yeah, I think it's a series of really beautiful accidents that our planet happened to be in exactly the right spot and are exactly the right star, and that because the universe is relatively infinite, we're not the only accidents out there.
Right. Okay. Well, I appreciate that.